The crimson sand of the Cytherian War Academy's Grand Arena had drunk the blood of 47 cadets this cycle. Cadet Vex Torin sat motionless on the brass bench, her scarred hands folded in her lap, watching the 48th body being dragged away by maintenance drones. The Vorthik who had done the killing a hulking, chitinous brute named Gexmer flexed his serrated arm blades and roared his victory to the packed amphitheater. The crowd went wild. 12,000 beings from across the Galactic Coalition screamed their approval, their alien voices creating a cacophony that would have shattered human eardrums. But Vex's enhanced hearing filtered the noise into white static. She was used too much worse sounds. "Next challenger," announced Proctor Velthas, her crystalline voice cutting through the arena's chaos. The spider-like Cytherian gestured with 4 of her 8 limbs toward the waiting cadets. "Who will face Gexmer for the honor of advancement?" Silence stretched across the contestant pit. 47 corpses in 3 days had a way of dampening enthusiasm. The remaining candidates, a mix of Altarian shock troopers, Centauran battle priests, and genetically enhanced Terran Marines, all found sudden interest in their boots. All. Except Vex. She stood slowly, her movement precise and economical. At barely 5'6" in her combat boots, she looked like a child among the giants surrounding her. Her Regulation Academy uniform hung loose on her weary frame, and her pale skin bore the telltale scars of someone who had grown up on a gravity-heavy death world, where everything wanted to kill you. The human volunteers, Velthas observed her, compound eyes glittering with what might have been amusement. How refreshing. The crowd's bloodthirsty cheers faltered into confused murmurs. Humans were known quantities in the galaxy, clever, adaptable, surprisingly durable, but they weren't gladiators. They were technicians, diplomats, medics. They solved problems with tools and tactics, not raw violence. Gexmer studied his new opponent and released a sound somewhere between laughter and digestive gas. "This is what they send me, this pale maggot." His translator rendered his native clicks and hisses into perfect galactic standard. "I will make it quick, little human. You do not deserve to suffer." Vex said nothing. She walked to the equipment rack and selected her weapons: a simple ceramic knife, a coil of molecular wire, and 3 small spheres that most observers dismissed as smoke grenades. No armor, no energy weapons, no shields. The Vorthik's confidence wavered slightly. Either the human was supremely arrogant or supremely dangerous. In his experience, beings who looked that calm before combat usually had good reason. "Begin." Velthas shrieked. Gexmer charged, his massive frame covering the 30-meter distance in bounding strides, his arm blades whined through the air where Vex's head had been a microsecond earlier. She had moved at the last possible instant, flowing aside like water. The crowd gasped. Vorthax were among the fastest species in known space, their reflexes honed by evolution on a world where the very plants could strike like vipers. Nothing human should have been able to dodge that attack. Vex rolled behind Gexmer as he skidded past, her knife flashing toward his left kidney. But Vorthik anatomy wasn't human anatomy. The blade scraped harmlessly off his chitinous back plates, sending up a shower of sparks. "Clever little rat," Gexmer snarled, spinning faster than physics should have allowed. His backhand caught Vex across the ribs, launching her 6 meters through the air. She hit the arena wall with a wet crunch that made several spectators wince, but she rolled with the impact, converting her momentum into a controlled tumble that brought her back to her feet. Blood trickled from her mouth, but her gray eyes remained focused and calculating. "You're tough for a mammal," Gexmer admitted, stalking toward her with predatory grace. "But tough won't save you." The arena held its breath. 47 cadets had faced this monster and died. The human looked no different from the rest, perhaps smaller, certainly weaker. Yet something in her stillness made the crowd lean forward in anticipation. Vex reached for one of her spheres. The sphere left Vex's hand in a perfect arc, detonating against the arena floor between her and Gexmer. Instead of smoke, it released a fine metallic powder that caught the harsh arena lights like glitter. The Vorthik snorted dismissively and charged through the cloud. That was his first mistake. The powder wasn't concealment, it was targeting. Each microscopic particle was a sensor node, mapping air currents, temperature differentials, and bioelectric fields. In the 3 seconds it took Gexmer to cross the cloud, Vex's enhanced neural implants processed terabytes of combat data. She knew exactly where he would be. The molecular wire whispered through the air, invisible to most spectrums, but clearly visible to Vex's augmented eyes. It wrapped around Gexmer's leading leg at the ankle, drawing tight with the tensile strength of woven carbon nanotubes. The vortex charge became a spectacular faceplant as for 100 kilograms of alien muscle met. Immovable force. The crowd roared its approval, but Vex was already moving. She bounded off the arena wall, using her Deathworld-trained muscles to launch herself into a spinning kick that connected with Gexmer's skull just as he raised his head. The impact would have shattered a human spine, but vortex vertebrae were reinforced with metallic deposits. Gexmer rolled with the blow and came up swinging. His arm blades carved through the air in a deadly web, forcing Vex to retreat. Each near miss drew blood as the monomolecular edges parted air molecules. With surgical precision, enough games, the vortex snarled, his mandibles clicking with rage. He activated his secondary combat system, subcutaneous armor plates sliding into position, toxin sacs preparing to flood his saliva with paralytic agents, pheromone glands releasing aggression enhancers that made nearby spectators shift uncomfortably. But Vex smiled for the first time since entering the arena. Finally, she whispered, too quietly for the arena's audio pickups to catch. She threw her second sphere. This one didn't contain sensors. It held 3 liters of concentrated enzyme solution, proteins specifically designed to break down vortex chitin. The sphere ruptured on impact, coating Gexmer's armor in what looked like harmless blue gel. The vortex brushed at the substance irritably and continued his advance. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the gel began to smoke. What? Gexmer looked down as his natural armor started dissolving. The compound was working exactly as designed, turning his greatest advantage into a liability. Within minutes, his protective plates would be worthless. Panic flickered in his compound eyes. No one had told him the human would come prepared for his specific physiology. This wasn't random combat, this was assassination. Who sent you? He demanded, backing away from Vex's steady advance. What faction pays your contract? Vex didn't answer. She was studying his movements, noting how the dissolving armor affected his balance and mobility. The enzyme wouldn't kill him, but it would level the playing field. Gexmer's retreat stopped when his back hit the arena wall. Trapped, he did what any cornered predator would do. He attacked with everything he had. His arm blades became a silver blur, carving geometric patterns in the air fast enough to generate sonic booms. Each strike could have bisected a battle tank, but Vex was no longer where the blades were aimed. She flowed between the attacks like she was dancing, her movements too fluid to be entirely human. The crowd was on its feet now, screaming in languages that predated spaceflight. They had come expecting a slaughter, but this was artistry. The human fought like gravity was optional, like momentum was negotiable, like death was merely another opponent to be outmaneuvered. Gexmer's fury reached a crescendo. He abandoned technique for pure aggression, his massive frame spinning like a bladed tornado. The display was magnificent and terrible and completely predictable. Vex ducked under a horizontal slash, rose inside his guard, and drove her ceramic knife up through the soft tissue under his jaw. The blade punched through his palate and into his brain, stopping only when it hit the inside of his skull. Gexmer froze mid-swing, his compound eyes going dim. He toppled backward like a felled tree, his massive body hitting the arena floor. With a sound like thunder, the arena fell silent. Vex stood over the corpse, not even breathing hard. She wiped her knife clean on Gexmer's dissolving armor and returned it to her belt. Her gray eyes swept the stunned crowd, meeting the gaze of beings who had never seen a human fight for their life. Next, she said quietly. The silence stretched for 17 seconds before Proctor Velthas found her voice. The human advances. Her crystalline tones carried a note of uncertainty that made the crowd shift nervously. In 3,000 years of Academy history, no first-year cadet had ever defeated a fourth-year Vorthek in single combat. But the day's trials were far from over. However, Velthas continued, her 8 limbs weaving complex ceremonial patterns. The trials of ascension demand escalation. The next challenger will be drawn from our elite cadets. A new gate opened, and the arena collectively held its breath. What emerged wasn't a single opponent, but a hunting pack, 3 hegemony reapers. Their symbiotic armor writhing with barely contained violence. Each stood 7 feet tall. Their forms a grotesque fusion of arthropod and machine, bioengineered. Killing machines bred for one purpose, war. This is unprecedented, muttered Commander Kickstar from the VIP gallery. The grizzled Centauran veteran had overseen academy trials for 40 years. Pack hunters against a single opponent violates the human requested escalation. Vel'Thas interrupted smoothly. She signed the advanced waivers. Besides, her homeworld designation grants certain accommodations in the arena below. Vex studied her new opponents with clinical detachment. The Reapers moved with fluid coordination, their shared neural network allowing instantaneous tactical communication. Their armor part grown, part manufactured, could adapt to different combat scenarios in real time. She was outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting on their terms. Perfect. The lead Reaper, designation Koth-9, extended rows of monomolecular claws from his fingertips. The human killed our ally. His voice was a synthetic growl filtered through vocal processors. Honor demands we flay the skin from her bones. Honor, Vex repeated, tasting the word like poison. Is that what you call murdering 47 children? The question hit the crowd like a physical blow. Children, that's what they were, cadets. Barely out of adolescence, sent to die for the entertainment of their betters. The Academy called it character building and survival of the fittest. But Vex had seen enough death to recognize slaughter when it wore a pretty name. Koth-9 snarled and signaled his packmates. They spread out in a perfect triangle formation, cutting off all escape routes. Their shared consciousness would let them coordinate attacks with inhuman precision. Vex reached for her final sphere. This one was different from the others, heavier, more complex. When it hit the arena floor, it didn't release gas or liquid. Instead, it began broadcasting. What is that? Vel'Thas leaned forward on her perch, compound eyes trying to focus on the device's energy signature. The answer came from the Academy's own sensors. Every monitoring system in the facility suddenly lit up with proximity alerts as the sphere transmitted the one thing Vex had spent 6 months preparing. A perfect replica of a Reaper distress beacon. The Reaper's shared consciousness interpreted the signal as an attack on their pack by an outside force. Their combat protocols triggered simultaneously, flooding their systems with combat stimulants and activating full battle mode. But their targeting systems couldn't identify the threat source. The beacon was coming from everywhere and nowhere. In their confusion, they did what pack hunters always do when faced with an unknown threat. They turned on each other. Koth-9's claws raked across Koth-7's throat, opening arteries that sprayed luminous blue blood across the arena sand. Koth-7 responded by driving his arm spike through Koth-12's chest cavity, puncturing both hearts. The crowd erupted in chaos. This wasn't combat, this was madness. The Reapers were killing each other while Vex stood motionless in the center of the arena, untouched and untouchable. Stop this, Vel'Thas shrieked, her voice cracking like breaking crystal. Deactivate the device. But Vex couldn't comply even if she wanted to. The sphere's quantum encryption was military grade, designed to resist tampering. It would broadcast for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds, long enough for a real pack to tear itself apart, hunting phantoms. Koth-9, the last Reaper standing, finally realized the deception. He stood over his packmates' corpses, his armor slick with their blood, and turned to face the human who had orchestrated their destruction. Clever, he admitted, his vocal processors distorting with rage. But your tricks won't work on a single target. He was right. With his packmates dead, his consciousness was his own again. No shared network meant no confusion, no fratricidal fury, just one very angry, very dangerous killing machine with nothing left to lose. Vex nodded acknowledgement. No tricks, she agreed, pulling her knife. Just me and you. Koth-9 charged. The Reaper's charge shook the arena floor, his 7-foot frame moving with the focused violence of a missile. But Vex had spent the pack's infighting studying his movement patterns, cataloging every tell and weakness in his biomechanical form. When Cadet-9's claws slashed down, she wasn't there. When his follow-up strike carved through the air, she had already moved again. But this time, she didn't retreat. This time, she attacked. Her knife found the gap between his shoulder plate and chest armor, sliding through synthetic muscle fibers like they were silk. The blade's ceramic edge scraped against his internal framework, drawing a shower of sparks and synthetic blood. Cadet-9 backhanded her with enough force to crater concrete. Vex flew 15 meters before hitting the arena wall, her ribs cracking like kindling. She tasted blood and copper, felt her enhanced healing systems struggling to cope with the damage. But she smiled through the pain, because now she knew exactly how strong he was. "You fight like a Deathworlder," Cadet-9 acknowledged, stalking toward her with mechanical precision. "No honor, no artistry, just survival." "Honor is what the strong call their cruelty," Vex replied, spitting blood onto the sand. "Artistry is what they call their murder." She stood slowly, her body protesting every movement. The crowd watched in horrified fascination as she faced down the Academy's most successful killer. With nothing but a ceramic knife and suicidal determination, Cadet-9's next attack was a masterpiece of lethal efficiency. 4 strikes simultaneously from different angles, each one designed to target a vital organ. No human could possibly dodge them all. Vex didn't try to dodge. Instead, she stepped directly into the attack. The claws punched through her torso in 4 different places, their monomolecular edges parting flesh and bone with surgical precision. Blood fontained from the wounds, painting the arenas and crimson. But Vex's forward momentum carried her inside Cadet-9's guard, close enough to smell the ozone from his combat systems, close enough to reach the vulnerable junction where his neck met his torso. Her knife went in at the perfect angle, sliding between armor plates to sever the main data conduit connecting his head to his body. Sparks erupted from the wound as his neural network crashed, leaving him blind and paralyzed from the neck down. They stood locked together for a heartbeat, the dying human and the disabled machine, each one sustaining the other. Then Vex's knees buckled and they collapsed together onto the blood-soaked sand. The arena fell silent except for the sound of Vex's labored breathing. Cadet-9's vocal processors emitted a string of error codes. "Before going quiet forever, medical teams to the arena floor," Vel'Thas commanded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Immediately." But Vex waved off the approaching medics with a bloody hand. She forced herself to stand, swaying like a tree in a hurricane, but somehow remaining upright. 4 holes in her torso leaked crimson onto the sand, but her gray eyes remained clear and focused. "Next," she said. The word hit the crowd like a physical blow. Next. The human was dying on her feet, held together by nothing but stubborn will and combat stims. And she wanted to fight again. "Impossible, Commander." Kickstar breathed from the VIP gallery. "She can't possibly." His words died as the arena's main gates began to open. What emerged wasn't another opponent, but a delegation, 3 Academy instructors, flanked by a full squad of Praetorian guards. Their ceremonial armor gleamed under the harsh lights, but their weapons were definitely not ceremonial. Instructor Dexmar, a massive Titan-class warrior who served as the Academy's chief combat trainer, stepped forward. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world where the very atmosphere was poisonous to most life forms. He stood 8 feet tall and massed 400 kilograms of solid muscle and bone. "The human has impressed us," he announced, his voice carrying easily across the arena. "But the final trial requires a different kind of test." Vex's enhanced vision cataloged the tactical situation with clinical precision. 12 opponents, all of them armed with military-grade energy weapons. The Praetorians alone could level a city block if they coordinated their fire. She was bleeding from 4 mortal wounds, operating on emergency stimulants, and armed with a ceramic knife. The smart play was surrender, accept whatever lesser victory the Academy was offering, and live to fight another day. But Vex had come here with a purpose that went beyond simple advancement. She had come to send a message. "All of you?" she asked, her voice carrying clearly across the stunned arena. Dexmar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. If you wish, though we thought you might prefer to yield with honor. Honor, Vex repeated. She looked up at the packed galleries, at the thousands of beings who had come to watch children die for sport. Let me tell you about honor. Her hand moved to her belt, not for her knife, but for something else entirely, a small device that had been disguised as a combat stim injector. This is a quantum transmitter, she announced, holding it up for all to see. For the past hour, it's been broadcasting everything that happens in this arena to every news network, military command, and diplomatic mission in the galaxy. The silence that followed was absolute. They've all seen what you call honor, Vex continued. 47 children murdered for entertainment. Elite soldiers hunting in packs against single opponents. The Academy's true face. Stripped of all its pretty lies, Belfast rose from her perch, her 8 limbs trembling with rage. Security, confiscate that device immediately. But it was too late. The quantum signal had already propagated across the galactic communication network. By now, representatives from a dozen major powers were watching the Academy's trials with growing horror and outrage. Dexmar's expression had gone from amusement to murderous fury. You have signed the death warrant for your entire species, human. The Academy's reach extends far beyond this world. Maybe, Vex acknowledged, but your reach doesn't extend beyond this arena. She activated the device's secondary function. The quantum transmitter's second pulse wasn't a communication signal. It was a weapons activation code. Every piece of equipment Vex had brought into the arena, every seemingly innocuous device she had carried, suddenly revealed its true purpose. The molecular wire, still wrapped around dead Gexmer's ankle, began rapidly heating as current flowed through its superconducting core. Within seconds, it reached plasma temperatures, turning the Vortex corpse into a pyrotechnic display that filled the arena with superheated gas and metallic vapor. The Praetorian guards raised their energy shields, but plasma doesn't respect force fields. It flows around them like liquid fire, seeking any gap or weakness in their defenses. Two guards screamed as molten metal ate through their armor joints, cooking them alive in their own suits. Instructor Zelfix, a crystalline being whose species communicated through harmonic resonance, shattered like glass as the plasma cloud's thermal shock waves hit his silicon-based physiology. His remains scattered across the arena floor in a spray of glittering fragments. But Dexmar and the surviving Praetorians were made of sterner stuff. They advanced through the superheated chaos, their weapons charging with lethal energy. The chief combat trainer's personal shield generator could withstand direct hits from orbital bombardment platforms. Mere plasma wouldn't stop him. Kill the Deathworlder, he roared, his voice carrying over the sound of boiling metal and screaming spectators. The Praetorians opened fire with military precision, their energy beams carving geometric patterns through the plasma cloud. Where the beams passed, the arena's reinforced walls exploded into molten slag. Any normal human would have been vaporized instantly. But Vex was no longer fighting like a normal human. Her combat modifications, dormant until this moment, finally activated. Subcutaneous armor plates slid into position beneath her skin. Her nervous system flooded with synthetic neurotransmitters that accelerated her perceptions to superhuman levels. Her damaged organs began emergency reconstruction using nanotechnological repair systems that technically didn't exist. She moved through the energy storm like a ghost, her enhanced reflexes reading the weapon's targeting solutions milliseconds before they fired. Each beam missed by centimeters, the margin of error exactly calculated to avoid injury while maintaining the illusion of desperate evasion. The crowd's screams reached a new octave as they realized they were watching something unprecedented. Not a human fighting for survival, but a predator playing with its prey. Guard Captain Mirthex, a veteran of 16 planetary campaigns, fired a sustained burst from his heavy pulse cannon. The beam could have punched through a battleship's hull, but it struck only empty air as Vex rolled beneath it and came up inside his guard. Her ceramic knife, superheated by passage through the plasma cloud, slid through the gap in his neck armor like it was tissue paper. His head separated from his shoulders. In a fountain of luminous blood, the corpse remaining upright for 3 full seconds before toppling backward. Impossible, Dexmar breathed, his compound eyes tracking movement patterns that shouldn't exist. No human possesses those capabilities. I'm not just human, Vex replied, her voice carrying despite the chaos. I'm what happens when humans decide to stop playing by your rules. She threw her knife. The blade tumbled end over end through the superheated air, its ceramic edge glowing white-hot. It struck Guard Lieutenant HFY between the eyes, punching through his helmet's visor and into his brain. He dropped like a marionette with cut strings. That left 8 opponents. Instructor Keldeth, a gaseous being inhabiting a mechanical suit, tried to surround Vex with toxic vapor, but her enhanced respiratory system filtered the poison harmlessly, while her thermal vision tracked his true form within the artificial body. A precise strike with her bare hand cracked his containment vessel, releasing his essential gases into the arena's atmosphere where they dissipated harmlessly. 7 opponents, the remaining Praetorians, had formed a defensive circle, their overlapping fields of fire creating a kill zone that nothing could survive. But Vex didn't try to survive it, she used it. She grabbed Guard Sergeant Kexmid's corpse and hurled it into the center of their formation. The guards, trained to fire at any moving target, poured energy into their dead comrade's body. The resulting explosion of superheated metal and synthetic flesh turned their own weapons against them. 4 more guards died in the crossfire, their armor no protection against directed energy weapons at point-blank range. 3 opponents remained, Dexmar and the Praetorians. Enough, the chief combat trainer bellowed. He drew his personal weapon, a gravity hammer that could alter local spacetime. Face me directly. Coward, Vex smiled through the blood coating her face. With pleasure, she charged straight at him, her enhanced muscles propelling her across the arena floor faster than most beings could track. Dexmar's hammer came down like the wrath of gods, its gravity field warping the air around it. The weapon passed through empty space as Vex slid beneath his guard, her hands finding the pressure points in his exoskeleton that would trigger involuntary neural feedback. But Titan physiology was too alien. Her techniques, designed for humanoid anatomy, had no effect. Dexmar's backhand caught her across the chest, launching her into the arena wall with bone-crushing force. This time, even her enhanced durability couldn't fully absorb the impact. She felt ribs crack, felt her artificial organs strain against their mounting points. Now you die like the rest, Dexmar snarled, raising his hammer for the killing blow. The weapon never fell, because Vex's final trick wasn't technological, it was psychological. Wait, Vex said. The single word cut through the arena's chaos like a blade through silk. Dexmar froze with his gravity hammer raised above his head, its spacetime distortion field crackling with barely contained violence. The 2 surviving Praetorians hesitated in their advance, their weapons still trained on the broken human at the base of the arena wall. But it wasn't the word itself that stopped them, it was how she said it. Not desperate, not pleading, not the last gasp of a dying warrior. Calm, certain, like someone who still held the winning card. You said I signed my species' death warrant, Vex continued, pulling herself upright despite her catastrophic injuries. Blood ran down her face in crimson streams, but her gray eyes remained focused and intelligent. You said the Academy's reach extends far beyond this world. Dexmar's compound eyes narrowed. It does. Your transmission changes nothing. The Coalition needs this institution. They will overlook irregularities to maintain stability. Will they? Vex asked. Even after they learn what I really am. The question hit the arena like a shockwave. In the VIP gallery, diplomats and military observers leaned forward in their seats. Throughout the packed amphitheater, 12,000 beings held their collective breath. Vex reached into her combat harness and withdrew a small crystalline data core. Even from a distance, its quantum encryption matrices were visible as fractal patterns of light that hurt to look at. Directly, classified intelligence packet, she announced, holding the device where everyone could see it. Terran Defense Force, Special Operations Division, Project Prometheus. Commander Kickstar went rigid in his seat. As a former Coalition intelligence officer, he recognized the designation. Project Prometheus was a myth, a whispered rumor about humanity's darkest military secrets. Impossible, Vel'Thas hissed from her elevated perch. Humans don't have special operations divisions. Your species lacks the genetic optimization for advanced warfare. Vex's smile was winter incarnate. Do we? She crushed the data core in her bare hand. The quantum encryption dissolved, releasing terabytes of classified information directly into the arena's communication network. Every screen, every data pad, every neural interface within range suddenly displayed the same horrifying truth. Humanity had been lying about everything. The files showed orbital shipyards hidden in the Kuiper Belt, each one larger than most species' homeworlds. They revealed weapons programs that violated 17 different galactic treaties, including planet killers that could sterilize entire systems. They documented military units whose official existence was denied by every human government. But most damning of all, they exposed Project Prometheus itself, humanity's systematic infiltration of every major galactic institution over the past 3 centuries. The Academy wasn't just training human cadets, that it was being studied by them. Vex Torin, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the stunned arena. Terran Defense Force, Special Operations Division, Xenological Assessment Team, serial number classified, mission status complete. The revelation hit like a physical blow. She wasn't a cadet at all, she was a spy. Every moment of the past hour had been orchestrated. Every seemingly desperate gambit carefully calculated to reveal the Academy's true nature to the watching galaxy. Dexmar's gravity hammer trembled in his grip. You planned this entire scenario? From the moment I applied for admission, Vex confirmed. Did you really think it was coincidence that a human from an obscure death world scored perfectly on your entrance exams? That I happened to carry exactly the right equipment to defeat each opponent in the VIP gallery? Alien dignitaries were frantically consulting their own intelligence networks, trying to verify the impossible data flooding their systems. What they found confirmed their worst fears. The human ships supposedly engaged in peaceful exploration were actually monitoring stations. The human colonies supposedly struggling for survival were actually military bases. Humanity hadn't been slowly integrating into galactic civilization. They had been quietly conquering it. The Coalition Council will never, Velfast began. The Coalition Council is 40% human, Vex interrupted. We've been patient. We've been careful. We've played by your rules for 300 years, letting you think you were the dominant species while we learned everything about you. She gestured toward the cameras still broadcasting across the galaxy. Today, the watching public gets to see what we've learned. How you treat those you consider inferior. How you murder children for entertainment while calling it honor. The arena's auxiliary screens flickered to life, showing feeds from across Coalition space. On Altair Prime, massive human freighters were dropping their cargo disguises to reveal military configurations. Near Centauri Station, research vessels were extending weapon arrays that dwarfed anything in the Coalition fleet. Humanity was revealing its true strength for the first time in 3 centuries. This is war. Dexmar snarled, his hammer beginning to glow with gravitational energy. You have declared war on the entire galaxy. No, Vex replied. We've simply stopped pretending to be weak. She triggered the final protocol embedded in her neural implants. Every human agent, every sleeper operative, every carefully placed asset across Coalition space received the same activation code. Simultaneously, the masquerade was over. The gravity hammer fell toward Vex's skull with the force of a collapsing star. Space-time warped around the weapon's head, creating a localized field that should have pulverized her at the molecular level. Instead, the hammer struck a shimmering barrier that materialized inches from her face. Personal shield technology, generations ahead of anything the Coalition possessed, protected her with casual efficiency. The gravitational distortion scattered harmlessly across its surface, like rain on glass. Dex single quotes. Mar staggered backward, his compound eyes wide with shock. Impossible. Humans don't have personal shields. Humans don't have a lot of things, Vex replied, rising to her feet as her injuries began healing with visible speed. Nanotechnological repair systems, far beyond Coalition science, were rebuilding her damaged organs in real time. According to your intelligence reports, the 2 surviving Praetorians opened fire with everything they had, their energy beams striking her shield with the fury of miniature stars. The barrier absorbed the punishment without even flickering. Vex walked through their barrage like it was a gentle breeze. Her first strike removed Guard Lieutenant Vex Har's head from his shoulders. Her second punch completely liquefied Guard Captain Murtex's chest cavity. Neither opponent had time to register their deaths before hitting the arena floor. That left only Dex, single quotes, Marduk, the chief combat trainer, backed away from her steady advance. His warrior's pride warring with simple survival instinct. He had trained for combat against every known species in the galaxy, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. "What are you?" he whispered. "The future," Vex replied. "Humanity spent 3 centuries learning from you. Your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. We absorbed everything you taught us and improved upon it." She gestured toward the screens, showing human forces revealing themselves across coalition space. "While you were playing politics and staging gladiatorial games, we were preparing for the day when diplomacy would no longer be enough." Dexmar's hammer trembled in his grip. "The coalition will never surrender to a species of primitives. They already have," Vex said. "They just don't know it yet." The arena's main screens flickered, showing new feeds from across the galaxy. Coalition Defense Command was in chaos as human ships materialized out of seemingly empty space, their stealth systems finally dropping their disguises. The massive vessels that had been dismissed as cargo haulers were revealing weapon arrays that outclassed anything in the Coalition fleet. But the humans weren't firing, they were waiting. "Surrender," Vex said simply, her voice carrying across the stunned arena. "Not to conquest, but to justice. The Academy will be dismantled. The gladiatorial murders will end. The Coalition will be reformed under principles that actually honor the lives of its citizens." Dexmar's mandibles clicked with desperate fury. "Never. We are the apex species. We rule by right of strength," Vex interrupted. "Very well." She moved faster than physics should have allowed, her enhanced reflexes operating beyond the normal limitations of organic matter. The gravity hammer spun from Dexmar's grip as her hand closed around his throat, lifting his massive form off the ground with casual ease. "This is strength," she said, her voice perfectly calm as the 8-foot titan dangled helplessly in her grip. 3 centuries of patience, 3 centuries of preparation, 3 centuries of learning everything about you while revealing nothing about ourselves. Around the arena, the alien spectators sat in stunned silence. The entertainment they had come to witness had transformed into something else entirely. A revelation that their entire understanding of galactic power dynamics was built on lies. "The Coalition has 48 hours to respond to our terms," Vex announced, her words carried by the quantum broadcast to every corner of known space. "Reform or face the consequences of 300 years of accumulated justice," she released. Dexmar, letting him collapse to the blood-soaked sand. The chief combat trainer lay gasping, his warrior's pride shattered along with his certainty about humanity's place in the galaxy. In the VIP gallery, diplomats were frantically consulting their superiors, their hands shaking as they tried to process the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Commander Kickstar sat motionless, his military mind calculating odds that grew worse with every passing second. "This changes everything," he whispered to no one in particular. Proctor Velfas raised herself on her 8 limbs, her crystalline voice cracking with strain. "The Academy protests these illegal actions. You have violated every treaty." "Every 47 children," Vex said, cutting her off. 47 young beings murdered for your entertainment. That's what your treaties were worth." She walked to the center of the arena, stepping over the corpses of those who had thought themselves her betters. Blood soaked the sand. Beneath her feet, alien blood spilled by someone they had dismissed as primitive and weak. "Let me tell you what's going to happen," she continued, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the amphitheater. "The Academy will be closed. Every instructor who participated in these murders will face trial. Every official who sanctioned them will be held accountable." The screens around the arena showed similar scenes, playing out across Coalition space. Human operatives were emerging from positions of apparent insignificance to take control of critical infrastructure. Sleeper agents were revealing themselves in government buildings, military installations, and corporate headquarters. The transition was bloodless, efficient, and absolutely unstoppable. "But we're not conquerors," Vex said, addressing the cameras that were broadcasting her words to trillions of beings across the galaxy. "We're liberators. The Coalition promised equality and justice for all species today. We make that promise real." She looked up at the packed galleries, at the thousands of aliens who had come to watch children die. "You wanted to see what Deathworlders are capable of. You wanted to test our strength against your champions." Her smile was sharp as winter starlight. "Congratulations. You passed the test." The quantum transmitter in her hand pulsed one final time, sending the activation codes that would begin humanity's true emergence onto the galactic stage, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as the power they had always been patient, hidden, and absolutely inexorable. Class dismissed, Vex said. The arena fell silent except for the sound of her footsteps as she walked toward the exit, leaving behind the bodies of those who had thought themselves untouchable. Behind her, the screens continued showing human ships taking positions around coalition worlds, their weapons powered but not yet aimed. A new age was beginning, and it would be built on the ashes of the old one's cruelty. 6 months later, Galactic Standard Kalandarthe, former Kitherian War Academy, had been transformed into the Tauran Memorial University, named for the human operative who had exposed its crimes to the galaxy. Where gladiatorial combat had once entertained bloodthirsty crowds, students from dozens of species now studied together in harmony. Vex stood in what had been the arena, watching construction crews install the final components of the new medical center. The blood-soaked sand had been replaced with gardens where alien children played together, their laughter echoing off walls that had once heard only screams. Any regrets? Asked Director Kickstar, the former coalition commander who now oversaw the facility's transformation. Vex considered the question carefully. The past 6 months had seen unprecedented changes across known space. The coalition had been reformed with human oversight, its policies rewritten to emphasize actual justice rather than the comfort of the powerful. The gladiatorial academies had been closed, their victims remembered, and their perpetrators tried. Not everyone had accepted the changes peacefully. 3 minor wars had erupted as some species tried to resist humanity's emerging dominance. They had lasted exactly as long as it took for human ships to arrive in their systems, which is to say, not long at all. Only one, Vex replied finally, that it took us 300 years to act. She touched a memorial plaque embedded in the garden's central wall. 47 names were carved in the stone. The students who had died for the Academy's version of honor. Their deaths had become the catalyst for galactic transformation, their memory the foundation upon which a better civilization could be built. The strong do what they can, Kickstar quoted, recognizing the ancient human proverb. The weak suffer what they must. But we were never weak, Vex corrected him. We were just patient. She turned away from the memorial and walked toward the university's main building, where human and alien students worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible under the old coalition. Their cooperation was genuine, built on mutual respect rather than the false hierarchy that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia. The transformation wasn't complete. It might take generations to fully heal the damage done by centuries of systemic oppression, but it had begun, sparked by one human's willingness to reveal the truth about what her species could accomplish when they stopped pretending to be harmless. In the end, that was humanity's greatest strength, not their technology or their military might, but their ability to wait, to learn, and to act decisively when the moment was right. The Deathworlder cadet had sat in silence until the perfect moment. Then she had changed the galaxy with a single word: wait.